We're going to be talking about a very tough topic about bullying that goes on at home, school, church, hospitals, goes on everywhere. We'll be back after this. Thank you for tuning in to the Court of Public Opinion. We're going to be talking about the mental health system and what goes on inside the hospital emergency room with 201s and 302s, and how people are incarcerated into the mental health system. And there's nothing that I know about the database. I don't know if there's a flag on your doorstep or there's some like way of knowing. It's just when somebody is mentally ill or sick, they make all these decisions in the emergency room to lock somebody up and tie them down and put needles in their arm. And I want you guys to know about the mental health system and some of the psych nurses that are, some are very good and some are very bad. And I have met some people in the psychiatric industry that are terrible in the emergency room. A lot of the psych nurses, there's a few good and there's a few bad. And I've been through a lot with the mental health system for a long time. And I want to share my concerns about the mental health industry, about the medications that are dispensed. And I am concerned that some of them don't all work. Some of them uh, need to be changed, and or some need to be done away with altogether. And I want to talk to you about the history of Nazi Germany and the story that George is going to jump in here any moment. I brought George into the conversation about the story of the White Rose. Is it the rise of the White Rose, I believe? Is that what it is in Nazi Germany? Anytime anybody opposes any of them, you notice that a lot of things go on in the system, and it's systematic abuse. And we've been talking about the institutions for a while, about the institutions and what goes on in the institutions. And there might be legitimate reasons why somebody is incarcerated, okay? We're not arguing that. We're talking about the maltreatment and the way medications are forced on foster children and a lot of times innocent victims that are unknowing and they're fully aware that they're doing harm to their body. I was brought up with the belief that you had a choice. You know, the pro life issues I talk about is that you have a choice. You do not have to be sterilized. And there's a lot of that going on right now in my own home. And I might not hate the people that work in this industry, but I don't like the forced pills and the forcefulness that is going on with pharmakia. And there are a lot of people that need to be on pills, but they don't need to be doing the Thorazine shuffle. You know what I mean? They don't need to end up with a lobotomy. So, at what point do you do something about it? Do you wait till it gets to the point that they're so hooked on the medication and they need a lobotomy? I mean, I don't know at what juncture of the process, how many years into it. Like in the case of George's dad, how long was George's dad overly medicated that he could no longer function as a human being? He was able to basically function at the VA hospital. Like, there are a lot of veterans that have injuries and are or traumatized, and there's a lot of child abuse survivors that have been through the system. The system is wrong, and it has been wronging people for a long time. And the good Lord is going to rectify it. I just know it. I believe it. I know that person, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to speak specifically to the people that held me down and put a needle in my arm. I don't know where you come from. I don't know I don't know who your family is. I don't know nothing about you. All I know is you put a large needle in my arm without my permission, without my consent. This is my body, and I am opposing the things that went on in the emergency room. And 3 months ago, somebody made up accusations and got me into a situation where I ended up in the hospital. And I was telling George about it, how outraged I am and how emotional the topic is. I basically had to wait through the whole thing. I didn't have any answers. I mean, I lived in total confusion. And I know today that I was not wrong. And I was praying and praying and praying because I live in truth. I live in honesty and truth. And I honestly know that if I was in a situation where somebody told me to put a needle in somebody's arm, I would be against it because I do not believe in forced medication or inoculation. Although I believe that patients have to have rights, and I believe that patients should be in a position where they say yes to these things and not forced to be inoculated. And what's going on with the COVID is exactly what we're concerned about. How big government, big pharma, and how big it's gotten. They don't even listen to their clients anymore. They're making billions of dollars in big pharma, billions of dollars in big gov, and it's wrong. And I was so happy that President Trump chose to go with the hydrochloroquine and the zinc instead of some kind of vaccination. They're trying to talk him into it, and they're trying to talk people into taking vaccinations. And we know very well the vaccinations are harmful. There are things in those vaccinations that are not safe for human beings, much less an elephant. Some of the things that we're talking about are practically like tranquilizers that are dangerous. I mean, they could do irreparable damage. So while George and I are talking about what happened to his dad, they probably had tranquilizers the whole time. And it's been going on in America for a long time. And America, I don't know if America is more like Nazi Germany or in this respect, but when the Constitution says you have a you have constitutional freedoms, the freedoms are the liberty, happiness, and justice. And you know what? There are criminals, there are real criminals that have been on the street. They've been put on the street and they say, well, they gave them a lighter sentence, or during the parole phase, they let these people on a lighter sentence and they let them go free. Okay? So when I talk about it, I'm very passionate. I'm very upset because a lot of us had normal lives till we dealt with the mental health system. Most of us would never know. I was shocked when I dealt with the mental health system when I first went into this at 21. And so was and same with George. George, were you shocked when you dealt with that mental health program?
Yeah.
You went through the same thing. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm keeping this brief because it's not going to be very long of a show. But there are multiple people that are housed in jail and mental health hospitals that don't need to be there. And there are programs that you can get the help you need without having to end up in a psych ward or an institution. The institutions have proven don't work. The schools, where the bullying actually begins and ends. Do you know most of the kids are bullied if they're unless they're bullied by their parents, which I'm not saying that that doesn't happen because that is a reality. The bullying, most of it goes on at school or at home. And the parents that bully their children, shame on you. That's when the programs, when these when these wraparound programs and vocational programs do work, and after school programs to work with children that are abused by their mother or abused by their father or abused by a sibling, you know, these programs we've been talking about at Children's Hospital for over 20 years. When Erica Harkema, who was a forensic child abuse expert, was sharing the story about how many thousands of children she saved, and she was sharing the story about how many of these children have nowhere to turn to. And if you felt like that, you had no one to turn to because a mother bullied you, or a a father parent bullied you, or a sibling bullied you, and you had no one to turn to, there is hope. There are programs today where they support anti-bullying programs and put a stop to the violence. In fact, if you call the domestic violence hotline or even contact us or these smaller programs, they can put a stop to the bullying. That's exactly what it felt like being in that program. It was like a bunch of bullies tying me down. And it really came down to intimidation of any if anything. And I hope everyone knows that the artwork that we display here is for the healing experience itself. And I want to thank you guys for staying with us, George especially, because the healing journey is going to begin here. We want to be optimistic, we want to be compassionate, we want to be loving, generous, faithful, inspiring. We want to be hopeful. We want to be able to be wonderful, amazing, incredible, brave, courageous, creative, fascinating, funny, sweet, and playful. And that is my hope for you, George, especially because learning how to be able to have fun again. Even if you were a little child and robbed of that, you can still learn to have fun and like who you are. Isn't that right, George?
That's right, babe.
You can like who you are and have fun with your life. A lot of people who've been robbed of their childhood or robbed of their hope or happiness, it's because of it comes down to bullying. Bullying on every level. It could have happened at the hospital, it could happen at home, it could happen at school. If you were a victim of bullying and you don't know who to turn to, please make sure that there's not, I'm pretty sure there's a phone number. If not, text message me or email me at moonlightingwgiv at gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our broadcast. I know it's difficult being home on the holidays, especially if you live with a bully at home or somebody who has abused you at home. I know it's difficult. You don't have to be trapped anymore. And by the way, if you want to stay with us with our healing experience artwork, I would love that for anyone to maybe add some insight or maybe some offer some opinions on our artwork. Thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion. The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network.